Good evening. Welcome to a new edition of Inside Boxing Weekly. I'm your host for tonight, Jeremiah J. Pricer. I want to welcome you in. First off, of course, I got to tell you about our sponsors. Real quickly, betnow.eu. If you want to bet a little bit, use Truth50 as your code. Click on the link. You get a little extra back. We're also brought to you by sportsautographs.com. That is with a Z. If you enter the code Grueling15, you will get 15% off of any order of $100+. And also, the Retired Boxers Foundation with Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos. Again, fighters do not have a 401k plan. If you can go over there, chip in, they'd be greatly appreciated. Nice people. Anyways, let's get this ball rolling. I know there's been some inconsistency here, but we are in January. We're in the middle of January. And you know how it works. Anybody who's a boxing fan, there's typically not a whole lot to talk about. But we did have some fights last weekend. We do have a fight this weekend as well. So let's start with last weekend's results. Hopefully you guys caught that. Joe Smith Jr. versus Jesse Hart. It was a light heavyweight main event. And I was actually kind of excited about this fight. I mean, you're talking about two top 10, top 15-ish kind of guys. Stylistically, you think they would match kind of well. Not only that, sorry here. See if somebody's okay. Yep. And, I mean, just, on that alone, you figured it would be okay. And it turned out to be a decent fight, nothing special. I think a lot of us were surprised at how easy it was for Joe Smith Jr. to walk Jesse Hart down, pound on him, get away with some of the things that you didn't think he should. Jesse Hart just failed to establish his jab. And initially, he just looked intimidated by Joe Smith's power. It's almost as if... I don't know if they'd ever sparred in the past or whatnot, but it seemed as if Jesse Hart was intimidated from the outset or gave him, too little respect. And actually, when Jesse Hart opened up, when he didn't show him as much respect, he actually did all right. I mean, he looks like he could have made the fight a bit more competitive, but there is still the factor of Joe Smith's power. I did say on Twitter that he might be the heaviest puncher in the light heavyweight division. It might be true. That could still be Artur Beterbiev. Beterbiev, regardless, is the better puncher. I mean, talking about delivery systems, accuracy, speed, timing, all that stuff, accuracy, Beterbiev's clearly the superior there. I mean, hell, you watch Joe Smith Jr. against Jesse Hart, and he didn't really land a lot of clean stuff. I mean, he certainly did land clean, but, like full extension power shots, there wasn't much of that at all. I mean, I think if he did, even if you had a rematch between Smith and Hart, the factor of his power is still there. It's ever present, and you can see even when he was landing shots that weren't, full on, he was still able to hurt Jesse Hart. And, they did say that Jesse Hart had hurt his right hand going into the fight. I don't know the extent of that injury, so I can't say. Obviously, it did affect his performance. But with him, backing up as much as he did and acting the way he did, maybe he can win a rematch. I don't know if there's an idea for that. Probably not, seen as Joe Smith Jr. They're talking about some alphabet trinket stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if, Joe Smith Jr. gets a lighter Alvarez after this. That's probably the setup. I don't think either of those guys worthy of a quote-unquote world championship fight, but it's a decent style scrap if it comes off. Alvarez has to win his fight soon. So, we'll see how that goes. Anyways, Smith got the job done. Good for him. He's a hardworking guy, blue-collar kind of guy, inside and outside the ring. Real big puncher. Good for him. Anyways, also that weekend you had Jaime Munguia versus Spike O'Sullivan, Gary O'Sullivan, whatever you like to call him. The sailor mustache man. I don't know. What is he? 35 now. And, he was brought in as he was supposed to be a styles matchup that would make Jaime Munguia look good. And, and he did. There are a lot of people on, social media who did say that they saw some improvements. And I think there's something to that. he was working with Eric Morales. You can see that they're trying to get him in the right hands so they can refine his ability. And there were spurts. I think there were spots to me where he looked good, where, you saw flashes like, hey, maybe if this kid keeps it together, maybe if he stays disciplined, he might be pretty good. But again, me and John have had this out, and I'm just not convinced. I don't think his ring IQ is high enough to be. I just don't think he's that malleable. I don't. That's why I think you saw it in spots. I mean, if he was really changing, he would have fought against O'Sullivan the way I think he just would have fought a more disciplined fight all the way around. And, maybe it was a mixture of things. Maybe, he's trying to try out some new stuff and impress the crowd as well, and Spike was there to be hit. And in fact, Munguia had him reeling in the first round. I think some of us probably thought, oh, hell, this might be over, before we even get 3 minutes in. But O'Sullivan lasted. And, O'Sullivan is a guy who's pretty easy to look good against if you're a world-class level operator. Again, David Lemieux is not an elite-level middleweight. He blasted him out quickly. And this is one thing that I'm probably going to argue with John about, but I know he's going to argue that Munguia showed some flashes in there, and to a degree, I do agree. But I also think that it's still perspective lends itself here, and Chris Eubank Jr. actually looked better than Jaime Munguia against a better Spike O'Sullivan. In fact, probably what you would call a prime O'Sullivan. Not that there's a huge difference in the two, but Chris Eubank Jr. I think got a stoppage in, 7-8 rounds, something like that. I can't remember, but I think he was winning virtually every round. Maybe the first he lost. It's a bit fuzzy now, but yeah, O'Sullivan is a good puncher. Technically, he's quite good with the left hand, especially the left hook. You can see that that's his bread and butter punch. And, at times he throws a good right hand too, but he just seems to be, to lack with the right hand where where he's very good with the left hand. And there are many times when he was loading up with the right and, technically he was kind of sloppy. However, I think it was at the end of the third round, they got into a bit of an exchange. Munguia seemed to be feeling it, thought he had him, reeling again. He had him against the ropes. And Munguia clipped him really nice with the combination, especially the right hand. And it buzzed Munguia. He was hurt. He wobbled to his corner. And I don't think it's too big of cause for concern. O'Sullivan, say what you will of his ability, his lack of defense or whatever, he is a good puncher. He does have quite a few knockouts in his, compared to his wins. So you can't fault him there. But he did buzz Munguia. It does show that he can be hurt. There are some chinks in the armor. But then again, even the toughest guys can be hurt in exchanges. You can use Canelo Alvarez as an example. He was hurt when he was like 18 years old against Jose Miguel Cotto. Right? He was probably hurt worse than Munguia was against Spike O'Sullivan, and Jose Miguel Cotto was a natural lightweight, so things happen. So I don't want to read too much into it, but, there is that chink in the armor thing that I saw. But, Munguia did show some flashes again. He did have a good jab, especially in the 7th or 8th round. He was really pelting O'Sullivan with that jab. Really sticking it hard. And, O'Sullivan he didn't move his head, didn't seem to parry, and just kept taking him. And I realized that kind of sounded a bit sexual there, but wasn't intended to be such. But, yeah, Spike got spiked. And, good for Munguia. What does this mean at 160? Who knows? To me, he's gonna be a fun fighter. If you pair him correctly, if you put him against somebody like Chris Eubank Jr. or Liam Williams or Riyado Murata, I think those are excellent. Those are fights that he might take a loss in. And I don't think Golden Boy wants him to take a loss yet. I think they want him to lose to a big money guy. I've said this over and over again, but I think they want to cash him out against one of the big name operators, preferably Canelo Alvarez. I've heard Golovkin tossed around in there. I think even a 37-year-old Golovkin beats his ass. But I don't think Golden Boy would want to give Golovkin the satisfaction of doing that. I really think they'd prefer Canelo Alvarez to have at it. And if maybe they could squeeze it in the summer, maybe because if Alvarez actually does fight Billy Joe Saunders and it's not a particularly difficult fight, it may be a difficult fight tactically, but physically, it's not likely to be a tough fight. I mean, Saunders is not a scrapper. He's not like Golovkin. He's not going to bring the dog out in Alvarez. At least you wouldn't think. Again, I don't want to say it can't happen. I've seen crazier things, much crazier things, actually. So I don't want to say it can't happen. All I'm saying is it's likely to be a slower, more tactical fight like Alvarez has had against other southpaws, like Lara, for instance. So, yeah, I mean, maybe if they can squeeze that in the summer, maybe if they do it later this year, I don't know. I think it's possible that Alvarez and Golovkin don't fight a third time. It's been talked about more lately. I think DAZN really wants it. If, Thomas Hauser's article is anything close to the truth, and again, I don't know. It seems like they could use some subscribers, and Golovkin and Alvarez would be that. Anyways, let's see what they do. Munguia versus Murata, Williams, Eubank Jr., I think those are all damn good fights. He's not an elite level guy. I don't think he ever will be, but we'll wait and see. Also, let's talk about some of the news. I guess this sort of has something to do with last weekend's fights too, and it's about the Alejandra Jimenez. I didn't watch the fight. Women's boxing isn't my thing. And I honestly, it's just not my thing. I didn't catch any of it. I don't care to. There's going to be no replays to me, no hype for me. The only time I engage is when, a lot of chatter is going around, whether it's Katie Taylor, Claressa Shields. Sometimes I'll engage then, but a lot of it's not for hype purposes. It's whatever you have Claressa Shields being compared to men or something to that degree. But typically I just leave it alone. It's just not my cup of tea. But this Alejandro Jimenez thing, somebody edited the Wikipedia page or faked it and said she was a man, fighting as a woman, and then you hear in the post fight interview and she sounds like a dude. And she's surprisingly cut. Apparently, she did do VADA testing, which to me means that she's probably likely not using. But then again, as I've said on the show before too, don't put a whole lot of stock in VADA. They are the best that we got, but believe me, people who do PEDs will sign up for VADA. I do know that. Can't tell you how I know that, but I do know that. And but she looked cut. I guess she got the win. I heard it was close. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but it's just one of these things, man. With Claressa Shields and Jimenez, I don't know. There's just a lot of guys on social media. They're wearing their capes and coming to these people. Coming to defend their honor. I get spreading misinformation and saying Jimenez was actually a guy. I understand how that can be hurtful and. It's not real, but a lot of people are just, as the British would say, taking a piss, just joking, fucking around. Who gives a shit, man? It's just a fucking joke. I mean, and I've noticed that a lot of people are just fine with certain, but for Dillian White, if you criticize Dillian White endlessly, nobody's going to accuse you of racism, or I've seen almost none of that. White has received tons and tons of flack for things that he's done, whether it's, the apparent Luis Ortiz fight that was, he was offered, or, the PED stuff that went on. I mean, he got tons and tons of flack. I mean, he got flack for, showing up at, 270 plus against Marius Falk. I mean, he's received a lot of criticism, and I rarely see accusations of racism thrown around when it comes to him. But when it comes to Claressa Shields, or it comes to Jimenez, or any of these things, just take off your capes, man. I mean, it's cool if you want to receive back pats from some of your buddies, and you guys are thinking you're doing good deeds. I mean, that's all good and well, right? So you want to act like you're fighting the good fight. That's cool. Keep doing it. I wish some people would just lighten the fuck up. Again, take off your cape, man. It's all good. If it's all lighthearted and it's just a joke, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, no matter who it is. Whether you're joking about Shields, a white guy, a black guy, yellow guy, whatever the fuck. To me, it shouldn't matter that much. If it's all if it's done with vitriol, that's different. But again, a lot of this shit is just a joke. Like the Jimenez stuff, I just don't see any reason to get up in arms about it. There are going to be a lot of memes about it. I'm sure to have some on Monday for you guys so you can laugh at. Just pipe down, keep it calm. It's not that big of a deal. Anyways, let's move on to some news. I saw that Burchell and Valdez are likely going to fight. This has been, a lot of people have foreseen this. I like the fight. I like the fight partly because I think Valdez is going to get his ass whipped. Valdez is a good fighter. I mean, he's well-rounded. He's got pretty good pop, pretty good hand speed. I mean, he's pretty good at most things, but he's not great at anything. And he does have a tendency to want to scrap once he gets hit cleanly. I don't think his boxing IQ is great either. I mean, to me, he was getting outboxed in his last fight. And this guy wasn't he a substitute, or, somebody who was brought in, just to be a kind of, like a get comfortable with the new division kind of opponent, and the guy turned out to be pretty damn good. I thought the stoppage was premature. Maybe that was on purpose. Who knows? It's boxing. But Burchell, to me, he's just too much for Valdez. Burchell he's a boxer puncher. He throws in combinations. Technically, he's not great, but he's good. He's got good pop. I mean, in fact, if you compare Valdez and Burchell, I think there's some similarities where they're kind of like boxer puncher stylists. But Burchell seems to be the superior of the two. He's more comfortable in the weight class. I think he's going to be the naturally bigger guy. And I just think he's craftier. I think he's busier. I think he can take punches better than Valdez. And I think he's going to hurt Valdez. I actually think he's going to stop Valdez late. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a decision. I wouldn't be shocked if Valdez won. But to me, Burchell is going to be a heavy favorite in that one, and I think rightfully so. But it's a decent fight to be made. I think you get that, and then maybe you get Carl Frampton and Jamel Herring. I think you're good to roll. I think those are both decent fights. But what's it mean for Burchell? I don't know. I still want to see him fight the number 2 guy in the division. Technically, that is still Gervonta Davis. I don't know. I don't think that's ever going to come off. So it looks like we're probably never going to have a real 130-pound champion. And if he doesn't fight, Gervonta Davis, hopefully he fights the winner of Tevin Farmer and Jojo Diaz. I think that guy will probably be number 2 or number 3, and that's the best he can do. And for me, that's good enough. I mean, if Davis really isn't going to fight at 130, which I don't think he is. He said that he's willing to go down and do so, but with his last fight and him missing weight in his new weight division, I'm just not sure. Anyways, we also have Yafai versus Gonzales, Robin Gonzales, that is. That is supposed to be on the Mikey Garcia, Jesse Vargas undercard. That is a fight that I'm actually I'm excited for too. Yafai, the questions remain: is he really a world-class operator? Yeah, he holds some alphabet strap, yada yada. Who gives a shit? I mean, most of these guys do. There's a bunch of titleists, few champions. Yafai represents that. Gonzales actually looked pretty sharp in his last outing, though his opponent was overmatched. I can't say, though, that Gonzales looked sharper than he did in his last fight. His combinations were still there. They were obviously slower. They weren't as sharp. There didn't seem to be as much pop behind them. You can see that he's a faded entity. But again, somebody like Yefai, who doesn't strike me as an elite level operator at 115, which I think, I just think Gonzales, I think it's clear that he's not on that level anymore. If he had a rematch with Estrada, I think Estrada's going to be a clear favorite in that one, unless somehow, Gonzales goes out there and, blows out Yefai. I don't know. I just don't think Gonzales is at that level anymore. So somebody like this I think that's just fine. And we'll see exactly what he has. We'll see what both guys have. This should answer a lot of questions on both sides of the aisle. I wish Roman Gonzales luck. I'm going to be rooting for him. That's where my heart's going to be. I think he's an excellent fighter, one of the best flyweights I've ever seen. And I'd favor him over a ton of the greats. I really do think he was that good. And I pity people who... Sorry, I needed a drink there. Pity people who think that he was just an HBO hype job. I mean, it's really worth going back and watching his career. I mean, he was just excellent. I mean, great defense for an aggressor, excellent combinations, just a great fucking fighter. I mean, I think he's one of the greatest flyweights of all time. Was the competition there? No, maybe not. But I mean, even if you say he's like in the top 20 or so, I mean, we're talking about a sport that's been around for over 100 years. So that's rare company, regardless of where you have him. And again, I'm not counting 105, 108. I'm just kind of including that entire body of work into flyweight. But yes, sorry. Next up is Top Rank signing Jarrell Big Baby Miller and Tony Yoka. Tony Big Baby Yoka. Tony, no, that's not his nickname. No. But yeah, they signed Jarrell Miller and Tony Yoka. What does that say? What does that say to me? I'm an advocate of clean sports. Anybody who listens to this podcast regularly knows that. Miller is obviously a serious drug cheat. I mean, he got popped with 2-3 different substances in his system before the Anthony Joshua match. This guy's a serious offender. And Tony Yoka also received a 1-year suspension from, what was it? I'm not too familiar with, the way sports is set up in France, but I know that Tony Yoka missed, I think it was 3 drug tests. He was a no-show for 3 drug tests, and he received a suspension. I don't know if it was by their... a sports commission, or I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's in fucking French. I don't speak French, so I don't know exactly what it said, but he was suspended for 1 year. This is because he was, again, no shows. So, did he have a positive test? No, he didn't. But, missing 3 tests, right? Not showing up for 3 different tests. What does that tell you, right? I don't know what his excuse was, but 3 times, and not only that, you look at some of these guys when they've transitioned to the professional ranks. Yoka, to me, there are a number of guys, and I'm not gonna say all the names, but you look at guys like Joshua, you look at guys like Yoka. I mean, physically, they look tighter, and I do attribute some of that to PEDs. I know. Anthony Joshua, he's tested a bunch. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I know. I understand. Going about this in the way of the justice system and saying, well, hey, they haven't been popped, so they're innocent. I do understand that. I really do. But anybody who understands PEDs and the way it works understands. Lance Armstrong was tested over 500 times and didn't fail a single fucking test. So what does that tell you? That doesn't really tell you that justice is being served. It tells you that the system errs on the side of cheaters. So when guys pass tests, it's not, they deserve a little pat on the hiney, but is it, this isn't, we're not going above and beyond to try and catch these guys. And, guys like Shane Mosley, he never got caught. I don't think he did any serious testing, but Marion Jones never got caught. I mean, over and over again, these guys constantly get away with it. And so that's my line of reasoning. It's just the system errs on the side of cheaters, so these guys cheat. And why would you not cheat in boxing when you get these big deals, right? Top Rank signs Jarrell Miller, who's a serious cheater, and they signed Tony Yoka, who, to my mind, he's missed 3 tests, a no-show for 3 tests. Guys who cheat are still rewarded. I mean, look at what happened to Canelo Alvarez. Look what's happened to just about any of these guys. I mean, I think Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. got worse punishment for weed than some of these guys are for, clenbuterol and other things. It's just, again, why would you not use? If all you get is a slap on the wrist and some backlash from fans, many of which just then become nitpicky because, some people get a lot more flack for it than others. I mean, guys like Povetkin, Canelo Alvarez, it's like they can never live it down. And then like Ray Beltran, it seems like nobody cares. Everybody's talking about how he's still fighting for his green card. It's just, it's the outrage is not applied equally. And I get it, some people, I get why it is with Canelo and other people, right? I mean, the more popular you are, the more flack you're going to receive in general. I get it, because you got more eyes on you. I understand that. But I also understand that, again, the outrage is not being applied all the way around. So Yoka, I mean, who really brings up his no-shows? Just about nobody. Miller is probably going to get shit on for, the rest of his career, and I think rightfully so. But the system's just, it's not doing its job, right? Not only is it rewarding cheaters, it's rewarding cheaters. I mean, that's a system. I mean, Top Rank, the best known and best run promotional organization in the world, they just signed Jarrell Miller and Tony Yoka. What about Eddie Hearn? I mean, Eddie Hearn tries to play the nice guy, and maybe he's a good dude. I don't really know, but he's a promoter and he's in boxing. So, excuse me if I'm a bit skeptical. But what Billy Joe Saunders, Dillian White, I know the White thing, whatever. But these guys aren't opposed to that sort of thing. It's just all it is about reimagining their. You just got to do some PR stuff, right? Anyways, that's what's going on. Top Rank has signed these 2 guys. Good for them. I don't know. I mean, they should be happy. Miller will probably become an opponent for the winner of, Fury Wilder, I suppose. I'm not really sure. Tony Yoka will be fast-tracked to an alphabet trinket, which I think is a good thing, actually. Tony Yoka was a good amateur. I think he got beat up pretty good by Hrgovic in the amateurs. I don't put too much stock in that. Joshua stopped in the amateurs as well. And honestly, I mean, you could say that Anthony Joshua didn't even deserve to get out of the first round of the Olympics against the Cuban, Arislandi Savon. I believe I've got that right. So again, some of these guys are not, they win gold medals or, they get beat up in the amateurs or whatever. I mean, David Toole was stopped by, who was it? Felix Savon in the Olympics. Then he turned out to be hard as nails in the pro and a damn good fighter. I mean, you just got to be careful with all that stuff. It's worth assessing the styles, wait and see if they can develop, especially heavyweights. Heavyweights are one of those things, like, it's real temperamental because somebody like Audley Harrison, as we all know, could look like a world beater coming into the amateurs, and then, he just doesn't have the chin, just doesn't have the heart. There's a lot of factors that play in. So we'll just wait and see what Tony Yoka has. I will say, technically, he looks about the best of all these prospects. I know a lot of people are high on Dubois and Hrgovic and some of these other guys, but I actually think Yoka might be the most technical of all of them. Again, maybe he's still developing. He's got a lot to learn in the game, but he's good. He's technical. He's tall. He seems to understand the jab pretty well. Though he is from France, and there's there's a long history of boxing in France, but when it comes to heavyweights, there's not it doesn't have a particularly rich tradition. But we'll see. We'll see how he develops. We'll see what happens. Maybe he just doesn't have a chin and he gets blown out early, and they might as well scrap the career, or just I guess he'll go the route of David Price or somebody who looked good too. I'm not sure, but we'll wait and see how this all develops. And that's all I've got for tonight. Hopefully I can get John on and we'll sit down and have a more detailed discussion. I'd like to get his side of the Munguia O'Sullivan thing, and I'd like to get his opinion on a good number of things. Maybe Mike and I can get on too. We actually almost did a show last night, but for some reason my Skype was not working. I'm not sure what the hell is up with that. I guess I'll just have to uninstall and then reinstall. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for tuning in week in and week out. Again, go to betnow.eu, use Truth50 as your promo code, sportsautograph.com, grueling15 for 15% off any orders of $100 or more, and the Retired Boxer Foundation with Alex Ramos and Jackie Richardson. So for Jeremiah Pricer, you've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.